Hey dudes, Uncle Rhino here, and today we're going to be talking about something I'm very passionate about, which is Rust, one of my favorite games of all time. And before I get into it, before you watch this video, I think there's a few videos you should watch. Vertiigo started this whole discussion about where Rust new versus old, and there's been some responses, not direct responses, but almost indirect responses, and just more addition to the discourse. Phaedo has a video on the ethics in Rust, and another YouTuber has a video. I think his name's LOLOUftw something. I'll post links to the videos. I'm sorry for not being able to pronounce the name. I'll post links to all of these videos, and I highly encourage you guys to go watch these and then listen to me about this discussion. You'll have a better premise on what's going on. So basically, in a nutshell, Rust. Let's make Rust great again. Now, I'm going to start off this whole thing by saying, you guys know me. I'm very passionate, so I apologize if I'm coming at you a little hard. But I'm passionate about this, and I'm not going to be sweet about this. I absolutely disagree with Vertiigo. I absolutely disagree with the other guy. I think that Rust is fucking amazing, and to make Rust great again, you would imply that it was once great. Now, I played Legacy, and I liked Legacy. It was a good game. Legacy was a good game, and I don't think it was ever great. I think it was a really shallow, superficial game, centered on property and stealing other people's items. There wasn't really a lot of depth to it, like not the kind of depth that we have in Rust's current state. So I liked Racy. I did videos for it, and whatever. It was a good game. And so all this discussion now is centering on how Rust used to be better than it was today. So I want to raise a few points on how Rust awesome is and how much Legacy used to suck. And this is just to kind of invoke more discussion in the community, and just kind of play the devil's advocate. Not really go with the tide on this one. So here's the thing about clans. Let's talk about the big clans in Rust and how absolutely brutal it is to play on a server where there is 10-man clans. Okay. But before we talk about that, let's talk about just Rust being brutal in general. So Rust has always been brutal, and I think that's part of the reason why so many of us love it and it appeals to us, is because it has always been an absolutely brutal video game. Now, I'm not much of a fan of single-player games anymore. I like to play multiplayer games, and since there's no real difficulty setting on multiplayer games, I think Rust is pretty much at its max difficulty setting, and Rust is the epitome of being extremely difficult. I remember the first video I did for Legacy, it was actually called Rust is Easy, and I'll put a link to that in the description. And I just didn't get it, man. When I initially played Rust, I didn't get it. As I played it more, I started to understand it, because it's this great contrast that you have in Rust of the sweet and the sour. You have a lot of sour moments that build up to these sweet moments. And so let's talk about these larger clans. So these larger clans are absolutely making the game more difficult for certain styles of players, specifically lone wolf players who like to play by themselves for whatever reason. They don't like to play in groups. They don't like to play with other people. They like to be by themselves and play, which is fine. It's absolutely fine if you like to play that way. I like to lone wolf sometimes. For the most part, I'm a social gamer. Everything is better with friends. Everything is better with more friends. The more friends you can involve, the better it is. That's just how I feel. So when you play on these servers, these highly competitive servers, for example, Rustified, Rustopia, these servers have large clans on it, right? And they're known for having large clans. It's no secret that certain servers actually cater to some of these larger clans, and they've been doing it a while. This isn't something new. This isn't something that's popped up. More recently, though, the argument's been made that it seems like there's more and more of these clans. And some people were saying that the raid cams are to blame for it, because people see the raid cams and they want to be a part of these epic raids. And so this is the nature of Rust. Okay, this is the game that it has become because of its success. And I think a lot of people are kind of seeing really short-sighted on this. So I think, first of all, people should be absolutely happy that Rust has large clans, has raid-level bosses in Rust, right? Because Rust has always kind of been like, MMO in a sense. Not an RPG, but an MMO, like massive amount of people playing at once, 100-player servers, 200-player servers. And so it's kind of grown to this level where clans have become their own raid bosses, to where I don't think you need an equal amount of players to compete with these clans. You just need to be better. And being better doesn't necessarily, it's not something, you're not born with being better. You can teach yourself how to be better. More experience, you can get skill with more experience. And so having these clans on these servers, it's great because more people are playing Rust. More people are getting interested in Rust, and they want to play it in larger groups, which is awesome because this adds more depth to the game. Because you're not just raiding a couple-man group, you're raiding, a clan. And this even can create some politics, some unforeseen politics that happen in Rust. So let's just say you're a lone wolf, and you build a base next to another lone wolf, and for whatever reason, you step on his bear trap, and you're like, you know what, you fucking prick, I don't like you living here. You got to move. You move or I'm going to wipe you. So then you kind of start this little feud with this neighbor of yours, and it's two lone wolves. Well, these clans, it goes much more deeper than that. These clans have history of players. They have, there's a lot more social politics involved in this, where they loathe these other clans. They fucking hate them, like to the point where it's a real hate. Like a hate that they get off their computer and they're eating breakfast and they're thinking about ways to blow up the other clan's base. And I think that's pretty amazing. First of all, that we can even take that kind of emotion from a video game, right? Not even just that emotion, but that deep-seated feeling that people are getting towards other clans, other players in a video game. And so I think that's awesome. That adds more depth. And so just to talk about, Rust Legacy, because like I said, I liked Legacy. It was good. And I know a lot of people are going to disagree with me. A lot of the hipsters, a lot of the fucking diehard Legacy fans are like, oh, Legacy was amazing. Now, I'd like you to name 10 things about Legacy that were amazing, that made Legacy so great. Because I can't. I personally can't name 10 things about Legacy. I can name 20 things about the new Rust that I love because there's so much depth. I mean, I remember when the painting update came out, I literally painted. All I did was painted in-game for like a solid week, 2 weeks. And, that seems like, whatever. So you like to paint. This is a raiding game, Well, it never was intended to be a raiding game. It was intended to be a social experiment. And we'll get to that in a minute, but for the most part, that's just one aspect. You have the painting. You have the soon-to-becoming pets. You have the crop growing. You have the, automated systems. You have all of these things that are kind of like just snowballing into making this a really, really in-depth game that just isn't centered around raiding. And I know the majority of players are there to raid. And I think that also may have been an unintended consequence. If this truly was a social experiment, or if it ever does get to the point, I think that there's a couple problems that we're going to run into. So first of all, the Rust community has kind of hive-minded. I don't think we're toxic. I think we're absolutely like cancer, because cancer spreads, it duplicates, and we've all kind of hive-minded, myself included, to the point where we're, oh, welcome to Rust. That's a common thing to say is, oh, your base got raided, your stuff got stolen, your base got griefed, welcome to Rust. Okay, that's the mentality that probably 90% of the players have. And I think we're going to be in some serious trouble when Gary decides if they ever add some non-lethals or some non-destructive ways to raid, because we're going to be so used to this mentality of blowing up bases and killing everybody that having these other options is just going to be like amazing to us. We're not going to know what to do with it if we do it at all. So I think we might be in some serious trouble if non-lethals are ever added, or non-destructive base raiding. When I say non-destructive base raiding, the option to, you don't have to blow someone's wall up to get into base. You could maybe pick their lock. You can hack their code temporarily. You can do certain things to get inside of their base without destroying it, right? And we don't have those options. So I've heard this, Rust is a social experiment. Rust is a social experiment. If Rust was truly a social experiment, it would have tons of options for the players to do multiple different things. And I think that's where we're getting there. We're on our way there. We're not there yet. We're close to being a social experiment where the community can change. We all have the option. We all have the ability to change who we are as players and not murder everybody on site and not blow up someone's base because I was on their lawn and they shot at me. And so I escalate it to, oh, I'm fucking blowing your base up. Like, that's a little extreme, I think. I think if there was, more options, if there was options to tranquilize people, hold them captive, put them in handcuffs, put them in a rope, put them in a pillory, humiliate them a little bit. If there's ways to, obviously remove the kill console or kill command in console, just ways to change their experience that wasn't so final, like the lethality of Rust, because we don't have that option. The only guns in Rust are lethal guns. There's no potato guns, airsoft guns, water guns. It's all lethality and it's all destruction. There's no other way to raid someone's base without destroying it. I mean, other than, maybe socially engineering, making friends with them, getting inside and then fucking them out of the base or something like that, which, who does that? No one really does that. The majority of players don't play like that. I think there should be in-game mechanics that are non-destructive that allow you to raid. And even alarm systems. I mean, the amount of depth that this game has the potential for right now is just incredible. So when I see this discussion about how big clans are ruining Rust, I think that there's a few things that we got to look at. So first of all, these big clans aren't, they're up in their ivory tower. They're not indestructible. These guys can easily be brought down. You look at like tactics in guerrilla warfare where you're constantly hitting and running and not even killing them, just downing them, just constantly just becoming such a huge nuisance for them to be your neighbor. I mean, you could even put bear traps in where they go and farm wood. You could put signs up like whatever their clan is, like their anti-clan propaganda to try to demoralize them, just to try to get inside their head and mess with them a little bit. There's a million things you can do. Landmines all over their front of their property, wherever they move to. There's a million things you can do to combat these guys without, complete and utter destruction or total destruction. And so I think a lot of people, when they're making these arguments that these big clans, well, they can raid my base, but I can't raid theirs. Well, you can do better than raid their base. You can get inside their fucking head. You can put up anti-clan propaganda that makes people in the area think that they aren't shit. You could really do a lot of things to mess with these guys. I mean, 20 or 30 bear traps in the forest next to where they farm, that's going to do some damage. They're going to be paranoid when they walk. They're going to be paranoid when they're stepping in bushes. They're going to be, it's really going to mess with them. Now, it's not going to wipe their base out and take all their loot, but I think that's kind of a shallow counter to these larger clans anyways. You want to be more creative. You want to be able to fight these guys where they can't fight back. They're not going to be able to do that to you. They're the big clan. They're the big boy. They're the big bullies that, they have their massive ivory tower that they live in, think they can smash everybody, and you can definitely disrupt them in engaging them in guerrilla warfare. So, and I think where Rust is at right now is awesome. It is absolutely awesome. It is absolutely better. It is a better game than it was when I played it in Legacy. It is a better game than it was when I played it a year ago. And it's a better game than it was when I played it even 6 months ago. The amount of features, the amount of game-changing updates that are added to this game is unlike any other survival game. And we absolutely need to stop comparing it to Legacy, because Legacy was like, it was such an infant game at the time. It's like we're comparing a child, like a grown man who's like, he's like a man with like muscles and like, he's a man, he's like a big, sexy grown man. And we're comparing it to like this little baby boy who didn't even know, like he doesn't even know how to wipe his own ass. He's just like this little fucking leech baby boy that just like kind of like hobbles around and falls and shit and doesn't even wipe his own ass, and we're comparing it to like this big grown man. And Rust is absolutely, and I want to encourage a couple things in this video. I love the discussion that's going on. I just hope that people aren't swayed in their opinion from the opinions that are out there. But there's a few things that I want to encourage people to do. So the first thing is to talk about what features can make Rust better than it is now. And let's get away from this, oh, Rust used to be, Rust and Legacy. I played Rust on a browser. Honestly, compare it to now, what Rust is now, it's a fucking joke. And I don't understand what it is. It's the nostalgia. Whatever people keep bringing back old Rust. It just wasn't all that for me. It's just, honestly, it was a good game, but it wasn't all that. And I hope that we can step away from this constant comparison to Legacy. And the other thing that I hope is that people keep an open mind. If you take anything from this discussion, is keep an open mind on where Rust is going and keep an open mind on the play style of Rust. Because as Rust grows and as Rust develops, we too want to grow and we too want to develop. We don't want to be these mindless fucking mongoloids, these savages that just murder everything we see on sight and blow everything up that we see in Rust, like these fucking mindless animalistic monkeys, when there's so many more options that are available. And hopefully in the future there's more options available. And then the final thing, that if you are in a large clan, I highly suggest that you do develop a code of conduct towards these smaller bases. And if they are not messing with you, if they are not, if they're not trying to wipe you or trying to fuck with you like I talked about in guerrilla warfare, I think that there should be some kind of level of respect given to these lone wolf players, because it is hard. It's always, like I said, Rust has always been brutal. Clans are only making it more brutal, but there should definitely be a code of conduct. Like, okay, if this guy tries to roof camp us, if he tries to do this, do we really need to wipe him? Maybe. I'm not saying what the rules, the code of conduct should be. I mean, they could be completely twisted, but I think the majority of players out there aren't like that. And I think that a code of respect for these lone wolf players, even try recruiting them. I mean, some people are they don't have friends, and they would absolutely join these larger clans if they got recruited. Just some level of code of conduct for these guys, I think, would be important. And that's all I have for you guys. I hope that I opened a doorway for some of you on thinking about some of this stuff. I think the whole staff is doing an amazing job. If you look at everything that's in the genre and you look at where Rust is, they're miles ahead of the competition. And let's step forward in the future, and let's not keep backtracking with this. Oh, Rust was great when I was in middle school. Rust was a better game. Shut the fuck up, all right? Rust is amazing. Rust is fucking... Go play Legacy. It's a fucking joke. As soon as you load Legacy, you're like, dear God, what am I doing? Like, instantly, it's just trash compared to experimental now. So let's get away from that. I love you guys. Make sure to post in the comments your opinions. I'm curious to hear what you guys have to say. And I'll catch you in the next episode. Peace!